The Vrax Imperium had not encountered a vessel they could not destroy in 1,200 cycles. Admiral Thrax stood at the center of his command deck, his four upper limbs folded in contemplation, his lower limbs gripping the deck plates with practiced stability. The tactical display before him showed a single blip, red against the black void of the galleon expanse. The object was moving at sublight speeds, its trajectory carrying it directly through Imperial territory. Classification. Thrax's voice carried across the deck, resonating through the organic amplifiers embedded in his chest carapace. Sensor Master Grelix tilted his sensory cluster toward the main display. Unknown configuration, Admiral. Hull composition suggests a carbon iron alloy with layered ceramic composites. Power signature is minimal, fusion-based, possibly a secondary reactor. Primary systems appear to be operating at reduced capacity. Thrax's mandibles clicked with mild irritation. The Empire had controlled this sector for 3 generations. Unidentified vessels were rare. Unidentified vessels that ignored hails were non-existent. Scan for weapons, Thrax ordered. The crew worked in silence, their movements precise and economical. The Vrax valued efficiency above all virtues. Their military doctrine had been refined through countless conquests, each engagement teaching them new ways to minimize waste. Scan complete, Admiral. The vessel carries conventional projectile weapons, density-based, also mining equipment. Thrax's sensory cluster extended forward, mining equipment, drilling arrays, extraction beams, and what appears to be a gravity manipulation system for asteroid redirection. The vessel appears to be a civilian transport retrofitted for resource collection. The command deck filled with the low-frequency hum of Vrax amusement. A civilian transport, mining equipment. The vessel's power signature suggested it had suffered significant damage, radiation leaks, hull breaches, compromised life support systems. It was a wreck drifting through Imperial space. Open a channel, Thrax commanded. The view screen flickered to life, showing the vessel's exterior. It was a boxy, utilitarian design, scarred by impacts that had left deep gouges in its armor plating. Sections of the hull had been patched with what appeared to be salvaged metal, welded together with crude precision. The vessel listed slightly, its attitude control systems clearly failing. Unknown vessel, Thrax broadcast, his voice carrying the formal weight of Imperial authority. You have entered the sovereign territory of the Vrax Imperium. Heave to and prepare for boarding. Your crew will be processed according to Imperial law. Silence. The vessel continued its steady approach, its acceleration unchanged. Thrax's secondary eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture of controlled annoyance. Repeat transmission. Again silence. Admiral, Grelix reported, we are detecting an energy buildup in the vessel's forward section. It appears to be charging its mining equipment. The command deck held its breath. Mining equipment. A civilian vessel had just powered up a drilling array in the face of an Imperial fleet. Thrax's lower limbs shifted, redistributing his weight. Move to intercept. Tractor beams on maximum. I want that vessel disabled and boarded within. The weapon fired. Thrax would later describe the moment to the High Council, searching for words that would convey what he witnessed. The beam that erupted from the human vessel was not coherent light. It was not plasma. It was not any form of energy his sensors could classify. It was a column of concentrated gravity distortion, compressed to a width of 3 meters, traveling at speeds that made light appear sluggish. It struck the lead cruiser. The vessel, 70 million tons of Imperial steel, ceramic, and organic alloy, ceased to exist. Not exploded. Not shattered. The beam collapsed the vessel's molecular structure into a single point of infinite density, consuming it completely in less than a heartbeat. A flash of light and the cruiser was gone, replaced by a microscopic singularity that evaporated into Hawking radiation 3 seconds later. Thrax's primary eyes locked onto the display, his secondary eyes tracking the residual radiation signature. He had fought in 17 campaigns. He had witnessed the destruction of entire planetary systems. He had never seen anything die like that. "All vessels," he said, his voice dropping to a frequency that commanded absolute attention, "evasive action. Weapons free. Fire at will." The Imperial fleet responded with textbook precision. Missile salvos launched from 12 cruisers, their guidance systems locking onto the human vessel. Energy beams lanced across the void, targeting the ship's engines, its weapons emplacements, its bridge. The human vessel moved. Thrax had never seen acceleration like this. The ship changed velocity by a factor of 40 in less than 3 seconds, its damaged hull somehow surviving stresses that would have torn a Vrax warship apart. It slid between missile volleys with a grace that seemed impossible for its boxy, patched-together frame. The beam fired again. 2 cruisers disappeared. Thrax's command deck erupted into chaos. Crew members scrambled to their stations, their practiced efficiency replaced by the desperate movements of beings who had just realized they were fighting something they did not understand. "Admiral," Galactic said, his sensory cluster trembling, "the vessel is transmitting on all frequencies. It's a single message." "Put it through." The voice that emerged was flat, exhausted, and carrying an edge of something Thrax could not immediately identify. It was a female voice, speaking in broken Imperial Standard with an accent he had never encountered. "You fired first, we remember." The transmission ended. Thrax stared at the display. His fleet, 12 cruisers, 20 support vessels, over 3,000 trained warriors, had just lost 5 ships in 15 seconds. The human vessel continued its approach, its course unchanged, its damaged hull leaking atmosphere and radiation. It was not fleeing. It was not regrouping. It was advancing directly toward the heart of the Imperial formation. "All vessels," Thrax said, his voice steady despite the tremor running through his lower limbs, "maintain formation. Target weapons systems only. I want that vessel intact." He did not explain his reasoning to his crew. He could not. He did not fully understand it himself, but something in that voice, in those words, "we remember," had triggered a response in his ancient instincts. This was not a battle. This was a judgment. The first strike. The second wave of Vrax missiles detonated 400 kilometers from the human vessel, their proximity fuses triggered by the ship's defensive screens. The explosions were blinding, intense flashes that should have overwhelmed the ship's sensors and left it blind. The human vessel fired through the fireball. Thrax watched the display with a growing sense of unreality. The vessel's weapons fired in sequence, not the continuous beam of a conventional energy weapon, but pulse discharges that seemed to bend the fabric of space around them. Each pulse struck a Vrax ship, and each time the result was identical. The target ship collapsed inward, hull plates folded like paper, internal compartments compressed to molecular thinness. The vessel became a sphere of ultradense matter, then a flash, then nothing. "Weapon systems are offline on the 3rd, 7th, and 12th cruisers," Galactic reported. "The human vessel is targeting engine mounts. They are not attempting to destroy our ships, they are disabling them." Thrax's mandibles clacked together. Disabling. The human vessel was not killing his fleet. It was rendering them helpless, leaving them adrift in the void. "Why?" he muttered. The display showed the human vessel changing course again, moving toward the heart of his formation. It passed between 2 cruisers with less than a kilometer of clearance, its damaged hull scraping against the cruiser's energy screens. The ship's attitude thrusters fired in short, controlled bursts, guiding it through the gap with precision that bordered on supernatural. "Boarding parties," Thrax ordered. "Prepare breaching pods. I want warriors on that vessel." The command deck transmitted his orders. Across the fleet, Breaching pods launched from their bays, projectile pods designed to penetrate enemy hulls and deliver armed Vrax soldiers directly into combat. The human vessel did not attempt to evade the pods. It did not fire on them. It simply opened its cargo bay doors and allowed the pods to enter. Thrax's primary eyes narrowed. Grelik's internal sensors. What is happening in that cargo bay? Reading life forms, Admiral. 10. No, 12 beings. They appear to be waiting for the boarding parties to disembark. Visual. The view screen shifted to an image transmitted from the lead breaching pod. The pod's exterior camera showed the cargo bay, a cavernous space filled with crates, equipment, and the strange, mismatched technology of the human vessel. At the center of the bay, 12 beings stood in a loose formation. Humans. Thrax studied them with the analytical precision of a being who had cataloged over 400 sentient species. They were bipedal, bilateral, with endoskeletons and soft tissue covering their internal structures. Their skin colors ranged from pale to dark. Their facial features varied but followed a consistent pattern. They wore pressure suits that looked hastily repaired, and they carried weapons that appeared to be modified versions of their ship's mining equipment. The lead human stepped forward. She was young. Thrax estimated she had not yet reached full maturity by her species standards. Her hair was tied back in a practical arrangement, and her eyes held an expression he had seen before only in beings who had accepted their deaths. "Welcome to the remembrance of Saul," she said, her voice carrying through the pod speakers. "We are the last children of Earth. We carry our mother's memory with us." The Vrax boarding parties emerged from their pods, weapons raised, and formed a semicircle around the human formation. The human female smiled. It was not a smile of warmth. It was a smile of desperate amusement, the expression of someone who had no illusions about what was about to happen. 3,000 warriors, she said, looking at the Vrax soldiers. 12 of us. Those seem like terrible odds. The Vrax boarding leader stepped forward. "Your vessel has committed aggression against the Vrax Imperium. You will surrender and face judgment." The human female's smile widened. "Judgment, that's a funny word for what you're about to experience." She raised her weapon, a modified mining drill with a barrel that glowed with contained energy. The other humans followed her lead, their weapons humming to life. "The Imperium does not negotiate with." The human female fired. The beam was identical to the one that had destroyed the cruisers, but contained, focused, reduced to a fraction of its power. It struck the boarding leader and did not consume him. Instead, it pinned him to the cargo bay wall, holding him suspended in a field of distorted gravity. "This is a gravity compression field," the human female explained, her voice calm and almost conversational. "At full power, it can collapse a small moon. At this power, it's a non-lethal restraint. We killed your ships because you attacked us. We're letting you live because we still believe in mercy." The Vrax soldiers hesitated. Their training commanded them to fire. Their instincts told them that these beings, these damaged, exhausted, desperate beings, were more dangerous than anything they had ever faced. "Tell your admiral," the human female said, "that we do not want war. We want passage through your space. We want to reach the colony worlds at the edge of the galactic arm. We want to survive." The boarding leader struggled against the field. "You destroyed 5 of our cruisers." "You shot first." The words hung in the air, simple and devastating. The human female lowered her weapon, and the gravity field released the boarding leader, dropping him to the deck. "We could have killed everyone on those ships," she said. "We didn't. We disabled them. We left them life support. We gave them the chance to survive." She stepped closer to the boarding leader, her movements slow and deliberate. "Now you have a choice. You can report to your admiral that you encountered a damaged civilian transport and chose not to escalate. Or you can tell him the truth, that 12 human children armed with mining equipment just defeated 3,000 Vrax warriors without firing a lethal shot. The boarding leader's sensory cluster trembled. "You are children." The human female nodded. "I'm 17. The youngest is 11. We were evacuated from Earth when the fracture happened. Our parents stayed behind to keep the planet together long enough for us to escape." She gestured around the cargo bay. "This ship was built to move asteroids. Our weapons were built to break rocks. We have never fought a war. We have only ever fought to survive." The Vrax soldiers looked at each other. Their weapons remained raised, but their posture had shifted, the aggressive tension replaced by something more complex. Doubt, confusion, the beginning of understanding. On the command deck, Admiral Thrax watched the transmission in silence. His fleet hung in formation around the human vessel, their weapons targeting the ship, but their crews unable to fire. "Admiral," Grelix said, "the boarding parties are requesting instructions." Thrax's primary eyes remained fixed on the human female. 17. A child, by her species standards. She had just commanded the destruction of 5 Imperial cruisers and the humiliation of 3,000 Vrax warriors. And she had done it while offering mercy. "Recall the boarding parties," Thrax ordered. "Stand down weapons. Open a channel to the human vessel." The command deck fell silent. His crew stared at him, their sensory clusters extended in shock. "Admiral, the High Council will." "The High Council will be informed of my decision," Thrax said. "They will also be informed that we have encountered a species that destroyed 5 cruisers with mining equipment and chose not to kill a single one of our warriors." He looked at the display, at the boxy, damaged vessel that had just humiliated his fleet. "I intend to find out why." The nightmare begins. The channel opened, and Admiral Thrax found himself face to face with the human female. On his view screen, she appeared larger than she had in the cargo bay, her features more distinct, her eyes carrying an exhaustion that went beyond physical fatigue. "I am Admiral Thrax of the Vrax Imperium," he said. "You will identify yourself." The human female nodded. "Commander Alara Rourke, Remembrance of Saul. My crew and I are the surviving population of Earth's evacuation." Thrax's sensory cluster registered a subtle shift in the human's body language. She was nervous. Despite her calm demeanor, despite her victory over his fleet, she was afraid. "Commander Rourke," Thrax said, "you have destroyed 5 of my cruisers and disabled a 6th. You have demonstrated weapons technology that exceeds anything in Imperial databases. Yet you claim your vessel is a civilian transport." "It is." "Then your civilian technology is superior to our military technology." Alara Rourke's expression shifted, something between embarrassment and dark amusement. "Admiral, you don't understand. These weapons aren't designed for war. They're mining tools. The gravity compressors on this ship were built to break up planetary fragments. The energy beams were designed to melt through asteroid cores. The defensive screens are rated to handle impacts that would destroy a moon." She leaned toward the camera, her eyes intense. "Everything on this ship is built for one purpose: survival. We didn't build weapons to fight other beings. We built tools to keep our planet from destroying us." Thrax processed this information. His species had evolved on a stable world, a planet with predictable weather patterns and minimal tectonic activity. The Vrax had never needed to build tools capable of redirecting asteroids. They had never needed to develop weapons that could destroy moons. "And Earth," he asked, "your homeworld?" Alara Rourke's eyes flickered, a micro-expression that Thrax's training recognized as pain. "Earth is gone. The fracture began 3 months ago. Tectonic activity, increased solar output, gravitational anomalies. Our scientists predicted it, but they couldn't stop it. They built the evacuation ships and sent us away." She paused, and when she continued, her voice was smaller. "Our parents stayed behind. They said someone had to keep the planet together long enough for us to escape. They were the engineers, the scientists, the ones who knew how to operate the systems that kept the planet intact. They sent us away and stayed to die. The command deck was silent. Thrax's crew stared at the viewscreen, their sensory clusters retracted in a gesture of shared unease. "Commander Rourke," Thrax said, "you speak of your parents as if they were volunteers, as if their sacrifice was a conscious choice." It was. Everyone on Earth volunteered to stay. The elders, the sick, anyone who couldn't contribute to the evacuation. They gave us their resources, their knowledge, their ships, and their lives. They told us to survive. Thrax's lower limbs trembled. He had studied countless species, cataloged their behaviors, analyzed their cultures. He had never encountered a species that would sacrifice themselves for their offspring with such systematic determination. 3,000 warriors, he said slowly, and 12 children. You had every reason to kill us. You had the capability, yet you showed mercy. Alara Rourke tilted her head and something in her expression changed. "Admiral, we've been running for 3 months. We've lost 14 ships to radiation, sabotage, and 1 incident with a debris field. We've buried over 200 children in deep space. We've been alone, afraid, and running out of options." She leaned back and her face filled the viewscreen. "When you attacked us, we had 2 choices. Kill you all and risk starting a war we couldn't win, or show you what we were capable of and hope you'd let us pass. You gambled on our mercy." "No," Alara Rourke shook her head. "We gambled on your fear. You're an empire, Admiral. Empires don't survive by taking risks. They survive by making calculated decisions. We showed you our weapons. Now you have to decide whether fighting us is worth the cost." Thrax's mandibles parted slightly, a gesture of grudging respect. The human child had just articulated a truth that most Vrax admirals spent centuries learning. "Commander Rourke," he said, "I am going to send an escort ship to guide you through Imperial territory. You will not be fired upon. You will not be boarded. You will proceed directly to the edge of our space, where you will be given supplies and directions to a human colony world." Alara Rourke blinked, "Just like that." "Just like that," Thrax paused. "But I must ask you one question. Your weapons are designed for survival. Your culture is built around sacrifice. Your people faced extinction and chose to fight for each other." He leaned forward, his primary eyes fixed on the human child. "What made you this way?" Alara Rourke smiled, and this time the smile carried a warmth that caught Thrax off guard. "Admiral, Earth was beautiful. It was also trying to kill us every single day. Volcanoes, earthquakes, hurricanes, tsunamis, asteroid impacts, ice ages, mass extinction events. Our planet hated us, but we survived anyway. We got smarter. We got tougher. We learned to work together." She gestured around her. "This ship is full of children who have lost everything, their families, their homes, their future, and they're still trying to survive, not because they're brave, because they have no other choice." The channel fell silent. Thrax's crew watched the human child with expressions that ranged from confusion to awe. "Commander Rourke," Thrax said finally, "you are either the most determined species I have ever encountered, or the most dangerous. Admiral, we're just people who refuse to die, that's all." The Empire's response. The Vrax High Council convened in the Imperial Spire, a structure that had stood for 8,000 years at the heart of their homeworld. The chamber was vast, its walls lined with the preserved exoskeletons of ancient Vrax leaders, their empty eye sockets watching the proceedings with silent judgment. Admiral Thrax stood at the center of the chamber, his 4 upper limbs folded in proper deference, his lower limbs planted firmly on the ceremonial platform. Around him, the High Council sat in their elevated positions, 24 of the most powerful beings in the Imperium, their sensory clusters extended to their fullest reach. "Admiral Thrax," the High Archon said, his voice resonating through the chamber's acoustic amplifiers, You have reported an engagement with an unknown vessel. You have reported casualties exceeding 50% of your fleet. You have also reported that you chose not to engage the vessel further, but instead allowed it to continue through Imperial space. Thrax's mandibles clicked. That is correct, High Archon. The chamber erupted into discussion, the low-frequency hum of multiple Vrax voices overlapping in debate. The High Archon raised a limb, and the chamber fell silent. Explain your decision, the High Archon commanded. Thrax straightened his posture and addressed the council. The vessel in question was identified as a human civilian transport. Its weapons systems were retrofitted mining equipment, gravity compressors, asteroid redirection beams, planetary fracture drills. Despite this, the vessel destroyed 5 of my cruisers and disabled a 6th in less than 2 minutes. The council members shifted in their positions. The mention of mining equipment destroying military vessels had clearly disturbed them. We requested a full tactical analysis, the High Archon said. The results are concerning. The human vessel's energy output exceeds Imperial standards by a factor of 40. Its defensive capabilities are rated for impacts that would destroy a small moon. The vessel is not a warship, Admiral. It is a modified civilian transport that appears to have been built to survive catastrophic events. Thrax nodded. That is correct, High Archon. The humans are refugees. Their homeworld was destroyed by a natural disaster, what they call a fracture. They are the survivors of a global evacuation. Their vessel carries the last remaining children of Earth. Children, the High Archon repeated. You are telling us that children operating mining equipment destroyed 5 of our warships. The children destroyed 5 of our warships, Thrax confirmed. The chamber fell silent. The Vrax had conquered over 200 species in their history. They had never encountered a species that could lose their homeworld and still produce individuals capable of such destruction. Admiral, the High Archon said slowly, you allowed the vessel to proceed through Imperial territory. You provided escort. You offered supplies. You effectively surrendered the field to a ship full of children. I made a tactical decision, High Archon. The humans had already demonstrated that their weapons were more advanced than ours. They had also demonstrated that they were willing to show mercy. They disabled our vessels rather than destroying them. They captured our boarding parties and released them unharmed. Thrax stepped forward, his posture shifting from deference to conviction. High Archon, the humans are fleeing extinction. They are not aggressors. They are not invaders. They are refugees who happen to carry weapons that exceed anything in our arsenal. If we had continued to engage them, they would have destroyed my entire fleet. And they would have done it not from malice but because they had no other choice. The High Archon's sensory cluster retracted, a gesture of displeasure. You are suggesting that we allow a potentially hostile species to pass through Imperial territory without challenge, that we simply accept their presence and provide them with support. I am suggesting that we recognize reality, Thrax said. The humans are not a threat to the Imperium. They are a threat to anyone who attacks them, and they have shown no desire to attack anyone who doesn't attack them first. The chamber erupted into debate again. Thrax watched the council members argue, their positions shifting between outrage and calculation. He had expected this reaction. The Vrax Imperium had never encountered a species that could resist them so effectively. Their pride had been wounded, and their leadership was struggling to process the injury. Admiral Thrax, the High Archon said finally, we have decided to convene a formal inquiry into your actions. You will be relieved of command pending investigation. Thrax's primary eyes widened. High Archon, You will be relieved of command, the High Archon repeated. Your fleet will be reassigned to the Imperial Guard, who will pursue the human vessel and eliminate it. The Imperial Guard will be destroyed, Thrax said, his voice dropping to a frequency that cut through the chamber's noise. High Archon, I urge you to reconsider. The humans are not enemies. They are survivors. They have proven that they will fight to protect themselves, but they have also proven that they will show mercy when given the chance, if we attack them again. Your recommendation has been noted, the High Archon said. You are dismissed. Thrax's lower limbs trembled with frustration. He had served the Imperium for over 3 centuries. He had won battles, conquered worlds, and earned the respect of his peers. Now he was being dismissed like a junior officer who had failed a training exercise. High Archon, he said, I implore you, do not attack the humans. They are not what you think they are. The High Archon's sensory cluster extended fully, a gesture of absolute authority. Admiral, you are dismissed. Guards will escort you to your quarters. Thrax opened his mouth to speak again, then closed it. There was no point. The Council had made their decision. They would send the Imperial Guard to destroy the humans, and they would fail. He turned and walked from the chamber, his limbs heavy with the weight of what he knew was coming. Behind him, the High Council discussed their plans for the human vessel. Thrax did not need to hear their words. He knew exactly what they would do. They would attack. They would fail. And then the humans would have no reason to show mercy again. The truth revealed. The Imperial Guard formed up at the edge of the Gallian expanse, their vessels arranged in a battle formation that had never been broken in 800 years of Imperial history. 40 ships, each one a monument to Vrax's military engineering, their hulls lined with weapons that could turn planets to dust. Admiral Vorlix commanded the Guard. He had been chosen for this mission because of his reputation, a being who had never lost a battle, who had never shown mercy, who had carved his legend through the destruction of entire civilizations. Hail the human vessel, Vorlix ordered. The view screen flickered, and Alara Rourke appeared. She looked more exhausted than she had when Thrax had spoken with her. Dark circles ringed her eyes, and her movements were slower, more deliberate. Admiral Vorlix, she said, I'm Commander Alara Rourke of the Remembrance of Saul. I'm guessing this isn't a friendly visit. Vorlix's mandibles clicked with irritation. Commander Rourke, you are ordered to surrender your vessel and submit to Imperial authority. You will be taken to the Vrax homeworld to face judgment for your aggression against the Imperium. Alara Rourke sighed, a gesture of weariness that seemed to drain the energy from the entire bridge. Admiral, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. How many ships have you destroyed in your career? Vorlix's sensory cluster extended. That information is classified. I'm going to guess it's a lot, Alara Rourke said. You're the commander of the Imperial Guard. Your job is to destroy things, that's fine. It's what you were born to do. She leaned forward, and her eyes seemed to bore through the view screen. But here's the thing, Admiral. Every ship you've ever destroyed was designed to fight. It had weapons. It had armor. It had crews trained for combat. You were built to fight, and you're very good at it. Vorlix's mandibles clacked together. What is your point, human? My point is this. Alara Rourke gestured around her. This ship wasn't designed to fight. It was designed to survive. The weapons you see are mining tools. The armor you see is radiation shielding. The engines you see are built to push asteroids, not to win battles. She paused, and when she continued, her voice carried a weight that made Vorlix's sensory cluster tremble. Admiral, you and I come from very different worlds. Your species evolved on a stable planet. You never had to fight your environment. You never had to build tools to survive catastrophic events. You never had to sacrifice everything to keep your children alive. Alara Rourke's voice dropped to barely a whisper. We did. Earth tried to kill us every single day. Our planet hated us, and we survived anyway. We learned to build things that could withstand extinction-level events. We learned to work together even when everything was falling apart. We learned to sacrifice ourselves for each other because that was the only way anyone survived. She straightened her posture, and her voice returned to its normal volume. Admiral, this ship was built by people who knew their planet was going to destroy them. They built it to save their children. They built it to survive the end of the world. And they built it so that their children could build something new. Ilara Rourke smiled, a tired, desperate smile. Your ships are built to destroy things, Admiral. My ship was built to survive them. That's why we destroyed your cruisers. Not because we wanted to, because we had to. Because we had to show you that we were too dangerous to attack. The bridge fell silent. Vorlix stared at the human child, his sensory cluster retracted in a gesture of profound unease. You are telling me, he said slowly, that your vessel was designed for survival, that your weapons were designed to protect against natural disasters, that your culture was forged through constant struggle against your environment. Yes, Ilara Rourke said, that's exactly what I'm telling you. And you believe this makes you invincible. No, Ilara Rourke shook her head. I believe it makes us dangerous. We're not invincible, we're survivors. And survivors do whatever it takes to keep living. Vorlix stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned to his tactical officer. Begin weapons targeting. Lock onto the human vessel's engines. I want them disabled, not destroyed. The tactical officer hesitated. Admiral, their defensive screens are. Lock onto their engines, Vorlix repeated. The bridge crew moved to follow his orders. But even as they did, Vorlix could not shake the feeling that he had just made a terrible mistake. The human vessel began to move. Its engines flared to life, and it accelerated toward the Imperial Guard formation with the same impossible speed it had demonstrated against Thrax's fleet. Vorlix watched the display, his primary eyes tracking the vessel's trajectory. All vessels, he ordered, fire at will. The Imperial Guard fired. The counterattack fails. The weapons of the Imperial Guard converged on the human vessel like a tidal wave. Energy beams, missile salvos, kinetic projectiles. Every weapon in the Vrax arsenal was brought to bear on the single damaged transport. The human vessel did not evade. Instead, its defensive screens flared to life, and the weapon's fire struck them with devastating force. Energy beams splashed against the screens like water against stone. Missiles detonated at the boundaries of the shield, their explosions consumed by the field. Kinetic projectiles shattered against the shield's surface, their fragments scattering into the void. The human vessel continued its advance. Impossible, Vorlix breathed. That's a civilian transport, those shields should have. The human vessel fired back. The beam was different this time. It was not the focused pulse that had destroyed Thrax's cruisers. It was a wide-angle blast that spread across the formation, striking the Imperial Guard's forward elements with devastating effect. 3 ships ceased to exist in less than a second. Their hulls collapsed inward, their crews compressed to molecular density, their weapons and systems consumed by the gravity distortion. The remaining ships scattered, their formations breaking as they tried to escape the beam's range. But the human vessel was faster. It moved through the Imperial Guard formation like a predator through a herd of prey. Its weapons fired in sequence, pulsed discharges that collapsed Vrax warships into points of infinite density, leaving nothing but expanding clouds of radiation. Vorlix watched his fleet die. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, we've lost 18 ships. The human vessel is sustaining damage, but its shields are regenerating faster than we can overwhelm them. Vorlix's mandibles clacked together. Concentrate fire on its engines. I want that ship stopped. Admiral, the human vessel is altering course. It's heading directly for us. The display showed the human transport moving toward Vorlix's command ship, its boxy frame charred and scarred from the bombardment, its weapons glowing with accumulated energy. All weapons, Vorlix ordered, fire on the human vessel. Focus all available power on the forward batteries. The command ship's weapons fired. a concentrated barrage that would have destroyed a small moon. The human vessel took the hit, its shields flickering but holding. It returned fire. Vorlix's command ship shuddered as the beam struck its hull. The deck plates buckled, the lighting flickered, and the crew was thrown from their positions by the impact. "Shields at 20%, the tactical officer reported. "We've lost weapons control on the port side. Life support is failing in sections 3 through 7. Vorlix gripped his command position, his limbs straining to keep him upright. "Can we make an emergency jump?" he asked. "Negative, Admiral. The gravity distortion from the human weapons is interfering with our drive systems." Vorlix stared at the display. His fleet was gone, his weapons were gone, his ship was dying. And the human vessel continued its advance. "Open a channel," he ordered. The view screen flickered to life and Alara Rourke appeared. She looked battered, a cut on her forehead, a bruise on her cheek, exhaustion etched into every line of her face. "Admiral Vorlix," she said, "I'm going to give you one chance. Stand down your weapons, order your ships to withdraw. I will show you the same mercy I showed Admiral Thrax." Vorlix's primary eyes widened. "Mercy? You've destroyed my fleet. You've killed thousands of my warriors." "I've disabled your fleet," Alara Rourke corrected. "Your ships are still intact. Your crews are still alive. I didn't target life support. I didn't target escape pods. I targeted your weapons and your engines." She paused, and when she continued, her voice was cold. "I could have killed everyone on those ships. I chose not to, because I don't want to be a killer. I don't want to be the person who destroys an entire fleet because they were too proud to let a ship full of children pass through their space." Vorlix stared at her. His sensory cluster trembled with emotion, fear, anger, confusion, and something he had never felt before. "Respect. You are a child," he said. "A child who should be in school, learning how to build a future. Instead, you're destroying fleets and bargaining for your survival." Alara Rourke nodded. "Yes, because my parents gave me a choice. They said survive. And that's what I'm doing. That's what my people have always done." She leaned forward, and her expression shifted to one of desperate determination. "Admiral, I am going to send you a message for your High Council. I want you to deliver it personally. Tell them that we are not their enemies. Tell them that we want to live. Tell them that if they attack us again, we will not show mercy a second time." Vorlix opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. "We will pass through your space," Alara Rourke continued, "and we will reach the colony worlds at the edge of the galactic arm. If you try to stop us, we will destroy everything you send against us. Not because we want to, because we have no other choice." The transmission ended. Vorlix stared at the blank view screen, his limbs trembling with exhaustion and shock. He had faced many enemies. He had destroyed countless fleets. He had never encountered a being who could destroy an entire fleet and still ask for mercy. He had also never encountered a being who could do what the human child had just done. And he never wanted to again. The ultimatum. The human vessel reached the outer defenses of the Vrax homeworld 3 days after the destruction of the Imperial Guard. The defenses were formidable, a network of orbital platforms, planetary batteries, and automated missile systems that had never been breached. The Vrax had built their homeworld's defenses to withstand the full force of any known species. The human vessel approached them at sublight speeds, its damaged hull leaking atmosphere and radiation, its engines operating at reduced capacity. Admiral Thrax was summoned from his quarters. The High Council had decided that he was the only Vrax with enough experience to negotiate with the humans. They had stripped him of his command, then reinstated him. They had questioned his loyalty, then begged for his help. Thrax arrived at the command center of the Orbital Defense Network with a sense of grim satisfaction. "Status," he ordered. The defense commander, a young Vrax who had never seen combat, trembled as he reported, "Admiral, the human vessel is approaching the defensive perimeter. We are receiving a transmission on all frequencies." "Put it through." Alara Rourke appeared on the view screen. She looked worse than she had in their previous conversation, dark circles under her eyes, fresh bandages on her arms, a haunted expression that told Thrax she had been pushed to her absolute limit. "Admiral Thrax," she said, "I'm glad you're here. I didn't want to do this, but your High Council left me no choice." Thrax's mandibles clicked. "Commander Rourke, you must understand the position you've placed us in. You destroyed 2 fleets. You killed thousands of our warriors. You're now approaching our homeworld with weapons that could destroy your planet," Alara Rourke interrupted. "I know, that's exactly why I'm here." She leaned forward, and her expression shifted to one of desperate determination. "Admiral, I am going to give you an ultimatum. Your High Council will open a corridor through your defensive perimeter. My vessel will pass through, and we will proceed to the colony worlds at the edge of the galactic arm." Thrax's sensory cluster extended. "And if we refuse?" Alara Rourke's jaw tightened. "Then I will destroy this planet." The command center fell silent. Thrax's crew stared at the view screen, their limbs trembling with shock and disbelief. "You would destroy a world," Thrax said slowly, "full of billions of innocent beings." "I would destroy a world full of beings who tried to kill my crew twice," Alara Rourke said. "I would destroy a world whose leaders refused to let a ship full of children pass through their space. I would destroy a world whose leaders chose pride over mercy." She paused, and when she continued, her voice carried a weight that made Thrax's sensory cluster tremble. "Admiral, I have watched my parents sacrifice themselves to save me. I have watched my friends die in the void. I have watched everything I ever knew burn, and I have come to one conclusion: I will do whatever it takes to survive." Thrax stared at her. He saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the pain in her expression, the determination that had carried her through impossible odds. He also saw something else. He saw a child who had been forced to grow up too fast, a child who had been given the weight of an entire species and told to carry it, a child who had been pushed to the edge of what any being could endure and had refused to break. "Commander Rourke," he said, "I believe you." "I'm glad," Alara Rourke said, "because I'm not bluffing." She turned her head, looking at something off-screen. When she turned back, her expression was one of profound sadness. "Admiral, I have 12 children on this ship. They are the last survivors of Earth. They have lost everything: their families, their homes, their future, and they are looking to me to give them hope." She paused, and when she continued, her voice cracked. "I don't have much hope left, but I have this ship, I have these weapons, and I have the determination to do whatever it takes to protect the children in my care." Thrax's primary eyes locked onto hers. "Commander Rourke," he said, "I will speak with the High Council. I will convince them to open a corridor. You will not destroy our homeworld." Alara Rourke nodded. "I hope you're right, Admiral, I really do." The resolution. The High Council convened in emergency session. Admiral Thrax stood before them, his posture rigid, his sensory cluster extended to its fullest reach. "High Archon," he said, "the human vessel has given us an ultimatum. We must open a corridor through our defensive perimeter, or they will destroy this planet." The chamber erupted into debate. The council members argued for and against compliance, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of fear and outrage. "Silence," the High Archon commanded. The chamber fell silent. "Admiral Thrax," the High Archon said, "you have spoken with these humans, you have seen their vessel, you have witnessed their power. What is your recommendation?" Thrax straightened his posture. "High Archon, I recommend that we open a corridor." The council erupted again. The High Archon raised a limb, and the chamber fell silent. "Explain," the High Archon commanded. Thrax stepped forward, his limbs carrying him to the center of the chamber. High Archon, I have served the Imperium for over 3 centuries. I have fought in 17 campaigns. I have witnessed the destruction of countless species, and I have never encountered a being like the human child who commands that vessel. He paused, gathering his thoughts. The humans are not a military threat. They are a survival threat. Their weapons were not designed to destroy. They were designed to protect. Their culture was not built on conquest. It was built on sacrifice. He gestured around the chamber. We are a proud species. We have conquered worlds. We have fought wars. We have built an empire that spans a quarter of the galactic arm, but we have never faced a species like this one. Thrax's mandibles clicked with emotion. The humans are dangerous because they have nothing to lose. Their homeworld is gone. Their civilization is destroyed. Their future depends on the survival of a handful of children. They will do anything to protect those children. Anything. He looked at the High Archon, his primary eyes meeting the leader's gaze. High Archon, we can destroy that vessel. We have the weapons. We have the numbers, but we will lose. And even if we win, we will lose, because the humans will fight until every last one of them is dead. And when they're all dead, we will be left with the memory of a species that we destroyed because we were too proud to let them pass. The chamber fell silent. Thrax waited, his limbs trembling, his sensory cluster retracted in anticipation. Admiral Thrax, the High Archon said finally, you have spoken eloquently. You have made a compelling case. He paused, and when he continued, his voice carried a weight that made Thrax's mandibles click. I have decided to accept your recommendation. We will open a corridor through the defensive perimeter. The human vessel will be allowed to pass. The council erupted into debate. The High Archon raised a limb, and the chamber fell silent. Admiral Thrax, he said, you will communicate the decision to the human commander. You will escort them to the edge of our space. You will provide them with supplies and directions to the colony worlds. Thrax's limbs trembled with relief. High Archon, You will also inform the human commander, the High Archon continued, that the Vrax Imperium will not forget this encounter. We will learn from it. We will adapt. And we will be prepared if we ever encounter humans again. Thrax nodded. I will convey your message, High Archon. The High Archon's sensory cluster extended, a gesture of approval. You are dismissed, Admiral. I trust you to handle this matter with the same competence you have shown throughout your career. Thrax opened a channel to the human vessel. Alara Rourke appeared on the view screen, her expression one of exhausted anticipation. Commander Rourke, Thrax said, I have good news. The High Council has agreed to open a corridor. You will be allowed to pass through our territory. Alara Rourke's shoulders sagged. For a moment, she looked like she might collapse from the weight of everything she had endured. Thank you, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Thank you, Admiral. Thrax's mandibles clicked with something that might have been sympathy. Commander Rourke, you have done something that no being has ever done. You have defeated the Vrax Imperium, not through force of arms alone, but through your determination to survive. Alara Rourke shook her head. I didn't defeat anyone, Admiral. I just refused to die. That is precisely what defeat looks like, Thrax said. When you make the enemy realize that fighting you is not worth the cost. Alara Rourke smiled, a tired, genuine smile. I guess I never thought of it that way. Thrax's sensory cluster extended. Commander Rourke, I have one question. Your people, your species. You survived a world that tried to kill you every day. You built tools to survive catastrophic events. You developed a culture of sacrifice and cooperation, and you never gave up. He paused, and when he continued, his voice carried a weight of genuine curiosity. What is the secret to your survival? Alara Rourke laughed, a short, surprised laugh that seemed to release the tension from her entire body. Admiral, there is no secret, we just kept going. We got up every morning and faced the challenges that came our way. We worked together. We sacrificed for each other. We refused to let our fear win. She paused, and when she continued, her voice carried a warmth that caught Thrax off guard. Admiral, I'm going to tell you something. My parents told me this before they sent me away. They said, Ilara, the universe is a cold and dangerous place, but it's also full of beauty and wonder. Don't let the darkness stop you from looking for the light. She smiled, and this time the smile reached her eyes. I'm still looking, Admiral, and I'm going to keep looking until I find it. Thrax stared at her for a long moment, then he nodded. I believe you will, Commander. I believe you will. The human vessel passed through the defensive perimeter. It moved through the Imperial defensive network, past the orbital platforms and planetary batteries, through the corridor that had been opened specifically for its passage. Thrax watched it go. He watched the damaged transport, the boxy, patched-together vessel that had destroyed 2 fleets, and he felt something that he had never felt before. He felt hope. The human vessel reached the edge of Imperial space, and Thrax opened a final channel. Commander Rourke, he said, I have attached a cargo container to your ship. It contains supplies, fuel, and spare parts. It also contains a message from the Vrax Imperium. Ilara Rourke appeared on the view screen. A message. A message, Thrax confirmed. It says that the Vrax Imperium has encountered a species that showed us what true survival looks like. It says that we will remember this encounter, and it says that we will not forget the mercy you showed us. Ilara Rourke's eyes widened. Admiral, You are a remarkable being, Commander Rourke, Thrax interrupted. And you are a remarkable species. Go, find your colony worlds, build your civilization, and know that the Vrax Imperium will be watching you with respect. Ilara Rourke nodded. Thank you, Admiral, for everything. She paused, and when she continued, her voice carried the weight of a promise. One day we'll meet again, not as enemies but as friends. Thrax's mandibles clicked with something that might have been a smile. I look forward to that day, Commander. The channel closed. Thrax watched the human vessel accelerate away, its damaged hull glowing in the light of the distant stars. He watched it grow smaller and smaller, until it was nothing more than a point of light among the constellations. And he felt something that he had never felt before. He felt proud. Not of the Vrax Imperium, not of the High Council, not of his own accomplishments. He felt proud of the humans, of their courage, their determination, their refusal to give up. He felt proud to have witnessed something truly remarkable. The remembrance of Saul continued its journey. Ilara Rourke stood on the bridge, watching the stars streak past the view screen. Behind her, 12 children, the last survivors of Earth, worked at their stations. They maintained the ship systems. They monitored the supplies. They kept watch for threats. They were alone, they were afraid, they were running out of options. But they were also alive. And that was enough. Ilara Rourke reached up and touched the view screen, her fingers tracing the path of the stars. We're going to make it, she whispered. We're going to find a new home. We're going to build something new, something better. She turned to look at the children behind her. And she smiled. Because that's what we do. That's what humans do.